The Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy, has announced that Republicans would open an impeachment investigation into President Joe Biden over unproven allegations of corruption in his family's business dealings. The announcement by McCarthy kicks off what are expected to be weeks of Republican-led hearings intended to convince Americans that the president profited from the business dealings of his son Hunter Biden and other family members. But it's unclear if the GOP has evidence to substantiate the long-running claims or even the votes for impeachment.
This effort will be led by Chairman James Comer at the Committee on Oversight, in coordination with Chairman Jim Jordan for Judiciary Committee and Chairman Jason Smith on Ways and Means. Now, I do not make this decision lightly. And regardless of your party or who you voted for, these facts should concern all Americans. The American people deserve to know that the public offices are not for sale, and that the federal government is not being used to cover up the actions of a politically associated family. Now, I would encourage the President and his team to fully cooperate with this investigation in the interests of transparency. We are committed to getting the answers for the American public. Nothing more, nothing less. We will go wherever the evidence takes us.
Now, let's be clear about what this impeachment really is. It is simply retaliation. It is not based in truth or fact. It is not done for legal reasons or necessary legal reasons. It is purely because there is an election coming up next year, and Donald Trump, who is controlling the Speaker and controlling senior Republicans via his connections, Elise Stefanik and Marjorie Taylor Greene, two people that he has met with or spoken with in the last few days, and directly communicated what he wants. Now, of course, Trump is still furious about his two impeachments. He might parade the fact that they were not ratified in the Senate and that he got off, but in truth, he does not want to be a president that was twice impeached, and he has been trying to have those impeachments expunged via his surrogates in the Senate and in the House. And one of them, let's not forget what they were for. One of them was for extorting Volodymyr Zelensky in that phone call where he was trying to get dirt on Joe and Hunter Biden dug up in Ukraine in return for holding back support to Ukraine. And the second was, of course, for that small thing, trying to overturn the U.S. election. So two things that are effectively serious and significant enough that you would want to impeach a president. Two domestic issues that have ramifications for that president. What they're trying to do with Joe Biden, of course, now bear in mind they've been investigating him now for nearly 2 years and so far have come up with no evidence to suggest that there was any impropriety. They are now using impeachment as a kind of headline to give the impression that Joe Biden has done wrong without any change in the circumstances, without any new evidence. They claim they had a whistleblower and that turned out to be nothing. Time and time again, their claims that Joe Biden has been involved in shady dealings come to nothing. And in a way, using an impeachment as an excuse to find something which they haven't yet found, despite 2 years of investigations, is the reason why it is a sham impeachment. It is not an equivalent impeachment to the two previous impeachments of Donald Trump. So let's be clear about the difference, because Republicans are running out of ideas of how to install or reinstall the disgraced former President Trump back in the White House. They're not having much luck with their policies. They are not having much luck using the kind of traditional far-right and conservative rhetoric. Under Joe Biden, people seem to recognize that he is not an enemy of the state. He's not compromised as Donald Trump is. and people would rather stay with the safety and security of Joe Biden. So Republicans are having to come up with a methodology that might seem unconventional, but to them is a last-ditch attempt to try and put Donald Trump back in the White House, and that is to impeach Joe Biden in an election year. And Joe Biden, of course, is laughing it off because he knows it's ridiculous. He said, well, because it's not true, when a Fox News reporter kind of put a question to him about, business dealings and him being on speakerphone at Burisma, where Hunter Biden was working. Joe Biden's been very clear throughout that he never had any business dealings with Hunter Biden, famously saying to his son when he took the job at Burisma, "I hope you know what you're doing." Now, Joe Biden's not an idiot. He's been in public service his whole life, and he knows that to allow any kind of interference of his son's private business dealings with his work as vice president at the time would be unacceptable. He's not the type of person to cross the streams like that. In contrast, of course, to the Trump crime family, where we have people like Jared Kushner doing a deal just a couple of days after Trump's presidency ended with Saudi Arabia to the tune of $2 billion. And as you know, Jared Kushner was courting the Saudis throughout Trump's presidency. Hunter Biden has never worked in the White House. He's never been part of Joe Biden's administration or Barack Obama's administration. He has nothing to do with politics. The difference with Donald Trump, of course, is that his entire family were working for him in the White House. They were either advisors or they were surrogates or they worked on trade or international relations. They were intrinsically linked to Donald Trump. And so any shady dealings by Donald Trump's family are, of course, an issue for Donald Trump. So it's just important to understand and get some clarity between the two essential impeachments. And let's be clear, Donald Trump should really have been impeached the first time for trying to extort Ukraine, and that should have been ratified in the Senate, and therefore the impeachment should have not been wiped clean, and then he would not have necessarily been able to continue as a president. And that was pretty early on in his presidency. So, this is where, unfortunately, the Republicans who were prepared to bail out Donald Trump at whatever cost got themselves into hot water, because now they're stuck. They know that he's not a winning candidate. They know that he has not been successful for them last time round or even in the midterms. And so to have him on the ballot for 2024 is not helpful. But they haven't lined up anybody else. Trump is still pulling the strings. He's still a rock star in these Republican circles. And consequently, they're kind of stuck with him. And the other issue is Kevin McCarthy did a deal with the devil to get his speakership. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and these type of people, and they are taking their direction from Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants Joe Biden impeached. He doesn't care whether there's any truth to it. He doesn't care whether it's factual or what the outcome will be. He just wants the process put in place. Whether they have the votes for it or not is not the point. It is causing more chaos of the American political system, especially in the run-up to the election. And for that reason, it is essential that the truth come out, that the facts come out. And, my fear is that Joe Biden will just brush it off and be like, well, they don't know what they're talking about, because he is marinating in the facts, but they are not. And the MAGA Republicans, they don't care for the facts. They probably know deep down that there is not an impeachment trial to be had, but they're just going for it anyway. This is the last act of a desperate party running out of ways to secure any kind of victory at the ballot box in 2024. I'm Anthony Davis. You can hear me every day on the 5-Minute News podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered with Ron Filipkowski, and on Sundays on The Weekend Show with MeidasTouch.